So that's us when we're little. When we're little kids, we think anything is possible, anything in the world. There's no categories of what is and isn't possible, because you look at life and you just see a big blob of opportunity. When you ask a little kid what they want to be when they grow up, they'll say something like, I'm going to be a fireman and a chef and an astronaut. And you're like, okay, anything's possible when you're little. And then, other kids might say that they're going to be, a unicorn fairy tale producer on a farm. And you're like, fine, that's possible. And the reason it's possible is because a little kid takes all the stimuli in the world and doesn't yet know how to compartmentalize it into different areas of what things could and couldn't be. So it's like all the things that they see are opportunities for creating something else. It's your brain as a baby is just brewing all this information, and it's the potential to have creative output later. And in many ways, a little kid, when they're looking at the world, has the ability to think about things without any barriers whatsoever. And then over time, something starts to happen. We learn how to put things in boxes. And in a way, it's a good thing, right? Because if everybody constantly looked at the world like a little kid, then you would ask someone, did you ever go to that restaurant? And they wouldn't be able to know that you're talking about food, and then they wouldn't be able to respond, right? It's like everything, we need to have some basis for knowing what we're talking about. And in many ways, I think education is a series of experiences that help you categorize better and faster. And testing, I think, is actually a judgment of whether or not you can categorize and do it quickly. For example, if you see this and you say, oh, that's a quadratic equation, you're more likely to be able to answer that question quickly on the test. If you look at it and you say, oh, I think that's numbers and letters and maybe math, it's going to take you a lot longer. So if you're considered smart, you're going to be someone who can categorize quickly and then execute based on what category you've placed the question in. So here's the thing. In class, you're in school, you take courses in all these different categories of knowledge, of human experience, of things that we have decided are important for human beings to learn. And within all these categories are subcategories. So if you take science specifically, you have all of these, for example, and you could keep breaking it down, right? You have more subcategories within biology, for example. And the whole point of learning little bits and pieces of all these different fields is that you can take your experience in your educational background and take the best of it and the things that you decide you're good at and turn it into your career. And that's really great if that works for you. And I think Hannah might be one of those people. She might be a lucky person who got to go through school and loved biology, and she may become a biologist, and that is fantastic. And I think that many people don't always feel that way about school, and it can be really hard to go through school if you feel like all these things you're learning aren't going to apply to what you're going to love and be able to do in your life. And for those people who stand around with question marks hovering over their heads for a long time, which fortunately in America is more supportive than in other countries, because at least in this country we have the opportunity to decide what we want to do later in life, whereas in Europe, for example, you have to know at age 16 if you're going to go into a certain field. But anyway, if you're one of these people who needs some time to figure it out, I think that there is actually a really good way to think about it, which is that in many ways, right, when you're a kid and you start learning how to put things in boxes, you're losing that creative spark that you had when you were much younger that allowed you to think about things in a very fluid way and that sparked your creativity, like that. So you've lost the ability to do that in some ways when you're thinking only the way you think in school. Not to say that school doesn't produce your creative output, but you may start forgetting what else you'd love to do. And I would like to argue that a lot of our creative potential brews in the things that we love to do every day, but things that we don't consider to be work. So we do a lot of things, right? You go home, you go on Facebook. I don't think that has no value. And I'd like to argue that you have these things in the categories at school, right? And then around that are all these other things that you do. You may be cooking, you may be taking photos at parties, you may be a blogger, you may play fantasy football. Maybe you are obsessed with getting more followers on Instagram. Anyone? Maybe you explore nature. You make music playlists. Maybe you're a DJ. There's so many things that you may do that you may not actually realize are actually things that you do, that they have value, that it's something that you personally love to do. And what I've started to see in the last 5 years or so, I've met a lot of young people in my generation who are called millennials by the people older than us, right? We're in this you're maybe a little bit below the millennial age, but you're basically part of the millennial generation, which is like 18 to 35 right now, maybe a little younger too. And the millennials are the people who are figuring out how to reinvent careers based on the fact that the world has changed. There's been a recession, Facebook exists, technology has boomed. So how do we deal with that? Well, we have to start being creative in the ways that we make careers. And if we're not going to go into a standard career, we have to figure out how we can take what exists in the world and make something of it. And the people that I've started to meet who are, between 20 and 30 right now, who have done amazing things already, are the ones who combine what they learned in school and what they were trained to do and the things that they do outside of school that they love. So all of these things are completely relevant to the way that they operate in the world. And I'm going to give you some examples of people who have done that in really amazing ways that I think we wouldn't have been able to imagine 20 years ago. So the first person is Evan Walden. He is obsessed with introducing cool people to cool people. And it's like, you might just call that person, if you know him now in high school, he's like a social guy, right? He has a lot of friends. He's really good at helping other people find more friends. He's always nice, right? He's never been a bully. He's super fun to be with. Here's a little bit about Evan. Evan Walden is a connector. He majored in business administration at college. His first job was a corporate job in the chemical industry, and he was very successful, but he found no satisfaction from his work. So this is not a very uncommon story. Kids graduate from college, they do something they think they have to do, they don't love it. So here's what he figured out. So I joined a friend and became the co-founder of a startup called Rework. We are building an organization for professionals to find jobs when they know they aren't fulfilled by their work. We match them with social enterprises, nonprofits, and triple bottom line businesses working every day to reshape the world. So he's basically taken his background in business administration and found a way to combine that with the fact that he loves connecting people. So he now takes people, this is his website, people will apply to be in the Rework talent pool. So people around my age or a little younger or older who have graduated from college and want to find meaningful work will apply to be part of his pool. And then a company will come to him and his team and say, we're looking for an entry-level position for a person who has skills X, Y, and Z. If you can find us the perfect person, if you can match us with that, then we will pay you 10% of their starting salary. So it's a pretty good deal for them, and it's a great deal for kids who are looking for work, right? And the thing is, this is called headhunting in many, from many people's perspective, but it's a little different in that he's really putting an emphasis on the meaningful work part of it. It's not just any company. He's trying to match kids who have these passions with meaningful jobs. So he's a great example to me of someone who's really taken what he loves and what he's good at and turned it into a career for himself. The next person is a woman named Debbie Sterling, and she loves using her hands. She majored in engineering in college, and she founded Goldie Blocks Incorporated, which is a toy company with a mission to create really fun toys that develop spatial skills and teach basic engineering principles to girls. So here's what she said about her childhood. When I was a little girl, I used to build massive forts and obstacle courses complete with oversized bed sheets, lawn chairs, and homemade slime. I was always an inventor and maker of things. For my second grade Halloween costume, my friends and I built an incredible 3-part Chinese dragon out of cardboard boxes. So what if I got stuck being the tail of the dragon? We made a killing on the candy front. So Debbie took her engineering background and combined with the fact that she loves making stuff and now makes toys for little girls, and it's amazing. She started this company this year. It's already doing really well. She started by doing a fundraising platform on Kickstarter. And an example of what the website has to offer other than the toys is there's a little girl who's the main character in the upper right, the blonde girl. Her name is Goldie, right? And Goldie and her friends are learning how to build their engineering skills over time. So on a regular basis, they release these little stories, very similar to American Girl dolls. You know how those, I don't know if any girls out there who used to do it, I see a nod, like these little books over time that like follow the little girls throughout their pilgrim lives and whatever in the 1800s. Now this is 2012, and it's following these little girls who are learning how to do engineering. So completely revolutionary idea of how to make toys that are both educational and fun. And she's done it because she loves making toys, and she's good at the engineering background to actually think about how these prototypes would work. And the third example I want to give you is a guy named Cesar Koriyama. So he loves making videos, blogging, and keeping a journal, which like when you hear that, you're like, yeah, so does everybody, right? Everybody has a blog. Who cares about a blog? Well, he's done something very interesting. So first, here's a little bit about him. Cesar Koriyama is fundraising for an app that makes it easy for anyone to record 1 second of video each day of their lives. It's based on an experiment he has been conducting on his own life since he quit his job to take a year off from work to chronicle what he assumed would be the most adventurous year of his life. Now let me explain what 1 second of video means. It means literally 1 second of video. So you take a camera and you it's 1 Mississippi, and that's 1 day. 2 Mississippi the next day. And the cool thing is, if you do it for a year, you have 365 seconds of video, and he chooses the pieces of the video of his day that represent the most meaningful moment of that day, or whatever it was that he was doing the most. If he worked all day, it's a shot of his computer screen. If he ate amazing food, it's like sloppy, ribs on his hands. So it's really an interesting way to look at it, because he's always concerned about losing memory, like the fact that someone will ask you, what did you do this last year? And he's like, I don't know, right? It's like we don't know what we did. And so this is a really nice way to literally have a visual chronicle of what he did. And so here's why he decided to make this app. He said, the project has made me realize I need to do one interesting thing to make every day count. It's been an incalculably positive influence on my life. The reason that I've really decided to stop everything and try to build this thing is that I genuinely think it can have the same influence for others. And truly, people have believed in this as well, because this is his Kickstarter campaign, and he had a pledge of $20,000. This is from this morning, this screenshot. And as of today, he has $36,412 already, and he has 19 more days to go. So he's already surpassed his goal, which means he gets to keep the money. Kickstarter won't take it from him. And he gets to do this. And the app is going to make it very easy for someone to actually do this themselves with their iPhone or their Android. You take a second of video, it compiles it for you later when you have enough seconds, and you have a video of your life for however many days you did it. So I think that the three of these people, Cesar, Debbie, and Evan, are really great examples of people who have taken something that they love and that they just do anyway, and combine it with the skills that they may have been trained in throughout their schooling, or skills they acquired through former jobs and internships, and turn it into their own thing. So I want to show you guys a picture of Steve Jobs for a moment, because he's an example of someone here who created all this technology, right? iPads, iPhones, iPods, computers, that in 1980, if someone said, what is he going to do when he grows up? Even if he thought he knew, he wouldn't have been able to describe it. There was not yet categories to actually define the things that he's done. So in many ways, what we learn in school fits into these categories, right? And we think that those are our options. But there are going to be categories that you might actually be able to create that do not yet exist. So he is someone who's done that. And he actually gave a really great graduation speech at Stanford in 2005. Many of you may have heard it. It went viral right after he died. But one of the quotes I think stands out to me a lot from that speech, which kind of describes what I'm talking about, and I'm going to read it for you now. He said, "It was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. Believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference." So in other words, the things that you're doing now have value, right? And when you're a little kid and you think that, everything's possible, everything is actually possible. And don't lose that thought. Because in some ways, when you were little, you just saw one world, and really you can actually make more, because there are things we don't yet know exist that you can be the creator of. So I want to leave you with this. Everything that you like to do has value, and anything that interests you could lead to something big. So keep doing what you love. Thanks.